call the meeting. Start by taking attendance. Brian. Here. John. Here. Here. Tom. Here. Mark is absent. Sal. Here. Mike Reese.
Here.
Mike Sampson. Here. Sadie. Here. And Karen. All right. Mike sent around the meeting minutes from November 7th. Trust everyone's had a chance to look at them. And I guess I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written. Motion. Very good. Motion seconded by Mike. All right. Any discussion? Okay. And all those in favor of adopting the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I have to abstain because I was absent.
Okay. So we'll jump right in. Water and sewer. On page John. Yep. Thank you for coming out tonight. This budget worksheet that Carrie Ann prepared for this evening. On page 22 is where the sewer starts, and on page 23 is where water starts. So, like last time, John, just kind of go through, let us know if there's any increases, any major changes, any explanations you want to give, and then the committee can ask you questions.
The increases that I see in the sewage collection, and sewage control. Would gonna have more training because of our new furnace here. We're probably gonna increase that probably up to about $1,500.
Both water and sewer or just one?
This is on sewer. He's going right now, he's training right now to do his wastewater license.
Right now, in your budget, it's 2,000, so you
Yeah,
said.
just increase another $500.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Repair and maintenance, like to increase on the sewer side, the repair and maintenance. Up to about 3,000 from the 1,500 that's budgeted.
So you're making a request for another 1,500?
Yeah, another 1,500 plus 1,500. Yeah, that should cover it. And sewer treatment. Well, we look good right across the board. The electric bills, I'm not sure where we're gonna go. Depending on the cost of fuel, I mean, it's gonna be whether they come down or not. You know, it's up to Liberty into the news order. They're talking about coming down from where they were before, but that's all dependent on the cost of fuel and what the markets are out there. So I'm gonna stay with what I have right here. And the budget looks good for infection and treatment. We're doing dudes, I get a kick out of that. I have a guy that walks around for 30 minutes. And we pay him $1,500. That's the state for you. Everything looks good there?
Question for John on the sewer? Yes.
Yeah, was it an increase up to 1,500 per training or an additional?
No, just another $500. Yeah, that's that, yeah. And basically, because with the school was going, I mean, it'll be different. And then now we're gonna focus on him on the water side. We'll be taking the water side in spring. We'll take the test in probably June. He's getting sick of going to school. He went to school for 4 years and I'm sending him again. Oh, yeah, it'll be worth it, believe me.
Carrie Ann, is it I don't know if it's a typo or not, but the difference between the actual, excuse me, the department and the TA budget is, I think, attributable to the 58,000 that's in retirement.
Well, I'd like to have that in my retirement.
Yeah, I think what I had done
Actually,
was
it's
with the health insurance. And trust numbers.
Is it really the 152 or the 197?
The budget committee budget is the correct one.
You mean the department?
Yeah, the budget committee column. Cause when
Oh,
I,
all the way at the end.
yeah, when
yeah,
I
150.
moved the budget to the next level, it locks it and I can no longer. So any mistakes I made are like frozen in time.
Just for clarification, this has 2 full-time positions.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do this month. Yeah, he didn't, when did, the end of July, right? August 1st, that's when he came on board. I mean, this particular year, we won't see it effective, the next year he's gonna be in full. And we did have that position in there, but you put it in before.
Did you already haze and lock them into the pump station?
Not yet, I mean, he hasn't. No, I took him to the meeting house and we crawled like 2 rats on the floor, so that counts.
Got an inspection with them.
Oh, that's, yeah, well, that's,
But you're supposed to put it in something.
he did, see, this is, he did, now we have to find out how to get out of that building. That's the hard thing.
You said you wanna go home.
Yeah, they put concrete panels all the way around the new section, you know that. And then there's only one place to go out with it, it's gonna be interesting, so it's gonna be a challenge, to say the least. And the water was up, you can see the water level on everything when we're in the basement today.
If you come out. Under the handicap ramp.
Yes, that's what, the only problem is there's concrete panels, I think they're.
Yeah, there's enough clearance for all the panel, the ground on it.
Oh, is there,
Under
okay,
that. Mark,
all right, so we can see, we'll look, check for that, yeah, check for that now, but.
Another place to go in.
Yeah. It's interesting to say the least, but it's been dry since probably the July. I mean, it's super dry now.
Doing it while it's dry.
Well, I know we had, that's what we had, and he did find rock underneath everything. Underneath all that sand, there is rock, somebody had put gravel in there, so we're gonna come right up to the gravel. Going to the water side. The water side, we're gonna need a little more on the training side since we have 2 people. And that would be probably the 6th or 7th down, right below the retirement.
So go to what?
I'm gonna say go to 1,800 or 2,000. Be select, pick one. Let's do 2,000. All right, that would be good figure. He has to keep 20 hours and I have to keep 20 hours each year, so I mean, that's a train.
You've got 10,000 underwater for hardware and software, what was that?
We have to, that was the upgrade, Carrie Ann,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had an upgrade.
Of what?
of my computer system. We have both new Wi-Fi, new computers. Am I correct on that? And then also we have another upgrade in terms of the we're going for an upgrade in the meters too. That'll be our next thing.
Yeah, and there's new software that's going along with the new
New
meter.
meters, exactly, yeah. So that not,
Okay, break it out for me, and where is the computer located?
we have 2 of them up there now in the lab. Okay, and then we have new Wi-Fi that was put in both the JR. He's actually gonna be a person on a computer. First time in his lifetime.
I'll let him speak for himself. And on the software, I assume you're replacing Badger or not?
We're keeping Badger, but they're going to a new system. That's what they call a cellular-based system. So basically, each day, the endpoints, you know, those little endpoints that I have, instead of having the regular internet that you can read with a radio, it's actually gonna call into our office down here on, Route 4. Every day, Peter's gonna call in and give a reading.
Is that battery or is that?
It's battery,
hardware?
it's battery. So it actually calls, it goes up to the cellular point. I should have brought one with me.
So you don't have to have a reader.
No, you don't have to have the reader. So it automatically reads every day. So if there is an issue, you'll know right off the bat.
How much a unit for the new?
The new units run about the cost of an endpoint. The endpoints basically run just under $200 and something. I think these are 179 or 189, something like that. And we actually put them on. Mason and I, we have 10 on right now that we're testing. We're looking at testing.
Did you say you already have the computers now?
No, we have just 10 endpoints.
No.
Do we have the computers that are computers in the lab?
You have those.
Yeah, we have those
Well,
ready.
that's not part of the 10,000.
I have to
The
refer to.
10,000 is only the software. We've
Oh,
already
that's for
purchased
the
computers.
software that goes along with the new endpoints.
So is that an annual expense?
No, that's a one-time,
One time?
at one time, but there's gonna be a service expense along with it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the 10 grand is what we were quoted for the implementation.
Exactly, so there's gotta be a one-time charge, but there'll be a carry-on charge there about, and I don't know exactly what that is. I'm gonna say it's about $2,500.
For the subscription.
It's like a subscription in the
There was
maintenance.
a subscription before.
Yeah, that was, it's up 2,000 for the,
That used to be, in a different line. I don't know if it's still there. We're trying to remember, what it was. It's like a management line or something like that.
Mhm.
I forgot what the title was. Is that line disappeared?
don't think it's there anymore, Mike. So they have a hardware software line.
What about the 2430 line, replacing water meters, new software,
Oh, you definitely, bear with me.
page 24? Top of the page. At least.
Yeah.
That's pretty nominal, $2,500.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, it's just, there's gonna be a fee for the software to be on the computer in the office. And then there'll be a yearly fee past that.
Oh, it was the billing expenses is where that was,
That's where the maintenance,
I believe that's where the old line was. There was a charge in the old budget.
yeah, it was a yearly charge to Badger.
The billing expenses now would cover probably just the postage.
Yes, postage and
So I don't think there's anything in there other than what's.
so that'll be $10,000 will be a one-time charge for the software. And then we have the cost of actually putting the endpoints in and replacing all the heads. Now, we're gonna start that in January. And it'll probably be completed by the end of the first quarter. So the end of the first quarter, we'll complete them. We'll have 110 done in January. And then the balance of them will be completed by the end of the first quarter.
This software, is this, unique to us or is it?
It's something that just came out about 3 years ago. And it's kind of interesting because the cell coverage here has improved vastly since I've been here. I mean, there were days where you couldn't go to certain points in town and call anybody. But we actually they actually went around and measured it. And actually, there is a measurement tool. When we put these things on, the salesman was with us. And he said we had very high readings and ratings. And then we were in areas that you never got any cell coverage. We were up at Mascoma, up at the old folks' homes. And then you never got any cell coverage up there whatsoever. Now you do. Because of what they've done. I'm not sure what they've done, but it has gotten better.
What I was wondering about is, are there other towns using this, the state
Um,
using this?
There's 13 towns and cities in New Hampshire that are using it. They've had good success and we've had a couple of that didn't have such good success. But they did a survey on the Verizon, it's on the Verizon system. They did a survey about Verizon in town and it went over quite well. I'm surprised.
What I was getting at is if we run into a glitch or something in the future, you've got people you're allowed you can talk to about it.
Yes, oh, yeah, that's it's a very popular, software. The Badger, it just shifted this over. Problem in New Hampshire, in there are certain areas we don't have any cell coverage whatsoever. And I'll give you a good example over in, Eastman. Eastman is hills and valleys over there, and the problem over there is they can only get 35% of their, meters on this system, and basically they still have to read the rest of them by hand and by radio. And then with us, we've been very lucky. I mean, they went around twice and they looked at all the cell coverage in town. They were surprised themselves.
Thank you.
And just a little footnote to remember. The system, the reason we went to this system is the software that we had. Went 5 years beyond where they were actually even
Yeah.
they were not keeping it up. It was
Yeah, they
It
didn't
was
support it
obsolete
anymore.
several years ago. And it is now failed to the point, and the computer was on, we couldn't move it to another computer because there was no way to migrate it. And that computer has died. So we were at a place where we actually were having no billing software anymore, so we had to upgrade to something, and this was the best option at this point.
When, the lightning hit across the street, when God hated Canaan, when it crossed the street, found the wires that were above the town office and found its way down into the computer.
So Bill told me it was all on the computer.
Yeah, it was all on the back computer.
It did not get destroyed.
Oh, I know, they wasn't destroyed, but we couldn't get into it, Mike, that was the problem. We couldn't directly get into it. So that was,
It's a little.
yeah, it's a, but the other, our
Software,
plan was to move over anyway, I mean, that's the,
I understand that the software was on an older version of
Yeah.
DOS and it made sense. to me, So I don't really have any issues with that. Just, can you run through on the $10,000 line, there's 4,000 that appears to be for the endpoints. Then beyond that was software, and how much was that? For that line, but what else is in that $10,000 line? That's 4231, 7330.
7,300 was for software, I don't remember exactly, I saw the quote. 7,300 was for software, and then there were other things that went along with it, I'm not sure exactly the different parts and parcels that went along with it.
Yeah, I just took the
That
total.
you're over the budget, money doesn't cover.
So that's,
Okay, so
okay, so that's,
4331, 10,330 on page 23. Down towards the bottom, it says hardware, software, underwater. And we don't want it. That's, but it's $10,000. So I had written down that there were 200 endpoints and $200 a pop, roughly $4,000. And you're saying that you think the software in addition to that,
yeah,
is
software.
7,300?
I'm gonna say 7,300, remember, I don't have the quote in front
Is
of
there
me.
anything else that goes in?
The $10,000 was the entire quote for the whole program.
Oh, was it for the whole program?
Yeah, I took what the software company told us for the whole project. and put it
Okay,
in that line, so if you're aware of extra costs, you should probably let us know at this point.
And that includes the endpoints? The little thingies that are in the house.
It's his software, I don't know.
I'd have to look at that, I've never formally got the quote from them. So that's the thing, but I have to look at it. We
But
put,
before we close this exercise,
Mhm.
can we double check that and make sure?
yeah, no problem, yeah, I can do that. I don't have to get a hold of the salesman, so it probably won't be till late Friday afternoon.
Well, hopefully, we're not gonna wrap up the budget next late Friday.
Okay, well, I just, I thought you were.
A couple more weeks.
You were doing it tonight, I thought we were gonna report and have everybody happy and joy and.
Oh, you know how that works.
Can't you just look at the quote, Jerry Hanson?
I don't have it with me, see, it's on my system.
Instead of talking to the salesman, you're talking to Jerry Hanson.
Oh, the problem, yeah, I don't have it with me.
The problem is, John, there's two different functions. There's a mechanical function that has to go in the house, and then there's the software.
It's function,
You
yeah.
gotta make sure both of them are in and it could be a quote just on the software. And then there's the mechanic, we just don't know.
Jerry Hanson picked a $10,000 number off some piece of paper.
Okay.
Right, it had to be the quote, it had to be the quote that came in.
And the line item, that's
Actually
hardware,
cleaned it.
Software, yeah, so that's the
Thanks.
It could be both.
Because you need to send your.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Look, if you could just get it clarified before.
yeah, I'll find that out, Mike, that's no problem.
Mike, I have a I don't know if it would be for John or for Chet, but if I done the math right, between water and sewer, it's $58,000 increase over last year's budget. And we had this discussion earlier this year in the cycle, that the water and sewer rates were under collecting actual costs. So this alone represents a 16% increase. So I'm not on the town system, but do the town users know that there's gonna be 16 or more % increase in charges?
Well, basically, we're now at a place where we're gotta have the public hearing so we can start to work on the.
Right.
On the water rates,
Because
so
it's-
yes, they will be notified, but we haven't done that
I
yet.
mean, that's a big number.
It's gonna be more than that, Mike, because you don't have that service.
Right, yeah. No, I get it. I'm saying just the simple math.
And personally, knowing the water system, past experience, I know it needs to have an increase in funding, so I do support the town's effort to increase the funding. But in earlier documents that Carrie Ann has sent, and that means like 4 months ago. There was a report indicating that the rates were gonna go up 50% to 75%. And that's pretty extreme. So this part is 16% from my point of view. We have raised it like 4 times in the last 12 years. Highest, I think, was somewhere around 12 or 14%, so that's not out of line,
Okay,
but we don't know what the debt service is gonna look like, and that's.
Right.
You know, you have 25,000 into the debt service, right?
Yeah. Where?
But also the increase.
Oh, 4335, 21,400.
Yeah, the debt service is included.
Page 24.
We won't be.
I'm just
paying
nervous
this
for the
until
users.
26.
Okay.
I'm just nervous for the users.
Is that an accurate number for the bonding?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, again, it becomes the issue of, when we select the term and what we know the interest rates at the time, we would then
Is
make
it
that
a
adjustment.
reasonable
It's a
projection?
reasonable projection, it's between 25 and
Okay.
low 30s.
And that's counted in the 16%, so that's not unreasonable.
Okay,
So I think, though, what we have to consider, and that Carrie Ann let us know before, is that the reason it hasn't increased a lot is because we spent the reserve over a period of time. And so now, what are you gonna do? There's nothing left as a buffer. It's kind of like the unreserved fund balance that just
Right.
went away. Spend it instead of
it'll be a communication issue really at that point, to explain to the users that you could have had some of this last year or the year before. I just feel bad.
And just for the record, that was spent by 2012. It was $1 million capital reserve that was put in place when the system was reconstructed. And by boards over a long period of time, 30 years, they balanced the cost out of the capital reserve. We did increase it at one point, we're over $100,000, so we have put back in by raising the rates twice before during the last 14 years. But we spent it on these changes here, and we spent it on meters. We replaced all the meters. But you do need to have more money going into the capital reserve, no question.
Thank you.
You guys all set on? You know, I'll try to get back to you guys, and I don't know who I should send it to. I'll get the numbers back, get the quotes back and find it, you know, flesh it out. No, give it to Gary and okay,
or
we do that.
yeah.
Because if there's a change, then we
Yeah,
know all,
it should
any
be-
changes that are made, she gives
The
it to
numbers
us.
there, I'll just separate and flesh it out through the quote.
I'm gonna call you, I think you're right. You're in.
Yeah, and let her, yeah, she'll deliver the budget committee.
Just one more thing, where is the ongoing subscription cost?
Well, that's what I have, another thing I have to find out. I'm gonna say it's gonna be anywhere from $1,800 to $2,500.
But that's not in here yet.
That's not in there yet. Well, that won't be until, I'm gonna say the end of the year, they'll start that, because the initial cost will be okay. But then the following year we'll have that. That'll be brought back online.
First year's included.
Yes, included in the cost of, yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
so the first year is included
exactly, yeah.
in what you're currently calling the $10,000.
Yeah, it's part of the purchase, that's the first year
Yeah.
when you buy the
All
software.
right, well, just make sure, Carrie, and we see the quote that was telling you.
And we currently have the Badger software budgeted for, up in the sewer department.
Yeah.
The account that ends with 330 software hardware support, we do have $3,000 in there. The 1,800 is the software support for the utility billing that we've been using. And then there's 1,200 for the IT managed service support for the computers.
So that theoretically,
Theoretically, that'll be less than the new service.
Yeah, about the same, I would say.
And that service gives us like 24/7 support for.
Yes, yeah, they're good about support. They have their own, person in the field. So it's usually 1 to 2 days. Electricity on the water side, should be about the same. It's all dependent on what Liberty's gonna do to us. They're still at the higher rates. They said, oh, we're gonna do you a favor and come down. Well, they came out 6 cents, but after they doubled it. Well, I mean, they're not doing us any favor. We are both on the water and the sewer side, I use a lot of power. And that's the main issue.
John, electricity costs. What are we doing in the lagoons right now?
Right now, I'm just aerating with my 3 aerators. I'm looking at putting, fine bubble aeration in there, but I've gotten excellent results with what I'm doing right now.
Perhaps somebody could look at the state grant program for solar.
Yeah, well, we talked about that pre-COVID. Remember, we had,
He knows all the time, Bill.
I know that's,
So are there any state grants still?
yes, there is, yeah, both through Northern Borders,
And I think you spend a lot on electricity, I think it's like 10 grand.
11 grand.
So they've been paying full cost for the solar arrays and reduce charges to the town. It would be a great help if somebody applied for that.
Through, Northern Borders, yeah,
Well, they're also being issued through the state of New Hampshire.
through Liberty too, I mean,
I mean, sometimes the Northern Borders doesn't come down this far, right?
oh, no, it does,
Other stuff.
yeah, it does, Grafton and Cheshire,
It came in for several years and went up for 2, now it's back in.
yeah, it's all depends, MHI, that's what it's dependent on. It's dependent on the state and MHI, and we're right on the cusp. So that we fall back under, we get out, then we fall back under. That's how it's measured,
Who does MHI stand for?
median household income,
That's it.
yeah,
But a lot of the towns put it in straight out of the energy conservation.
Yeah.
State.
oh, it's a good suggestion, Mike, I agree with that.
And, we talked about solar up there for a few years.
Yeah, so we,
Up and up, couple times, right?
we looked at putting it on the hill, as you come up the hill to the lagoons.
Right.
And that's where they had looked, Reliance had done it.
And even if you, in the ideal world, if you have, let's say, 2,000, 3,000 for the pumps and crap up at the water plant, and you have 10,000
Yeah, 11,000
over
on the aerators.
at the aerators, you're gonna have net metering, so whatever you put in there, if you get it funded, fully funded under the state, which I think is possible.
Yeah.
A lot of places have done it. I'll save you 13 grand.
I agree.
Which would help on your capital reserves.
The inspection and treatment. We're going through a dynamic change with the labs. We have, this outfit from Europe that's buying all the labs up. And I think my costs there are gonna double. They may not happen next year, but it's certainly gonna happen within the next 3 to 5. The lab that we currently use, Eastern Analytical. I see their cost doubling within the next 18 months. I don't think it'll affect us that much this year, but it's certainly gonna affect us 2 to 3 years down the road.
And what are the costs now, John?
It runs anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000, so I'm gonna see it I'm gonna see it stay rate 8 or 9 within 2 to 3 years, which is a dramatic change. If it goes up 100%, I think that's where we're gonna end up.
Do PFAS have any impact?
I have no PFAS except for the lagoons.
So I'm not for testing.
No, it's come down probably it's 1/3 of what it used to be. The cost of it. It's down around $200, or it was like anywhere from $600 to $700 before. The septic lagoons, we're probably gonna have to close the lower one over the next 3 to 5 years.
What are you doing with the sludge?
Right now, I have it stored. So that's,
Plan where it's gonna go?
that's why my plan is, we're gonna close that lower lagoon, and then we're gonna have to find out where it's gonna go. That's all dependent on what's going on with the US EPA and the circular regulations.
You used to do land applications.
But they won't allow me to do it anymore.
And does Plymouth have a sludge management program?
They send it to our buddies in Ashland, RMI. White Mountain, whatever, you remember what they were called
Yeah, yeah.
before. So basically, they blend and they add it, but there's liability that goes along with that. So if I send them higher PFAS material, there's liability long term, because if somebody sues them, they go back and then they look and say, well, Canaan did that. Because if you take something off site, there's a liability that goes along with it. So we're all waiting on what's gonna happen in this new administration with the EPA and whether that's regulated or not.
So as far as getting back to the budget.
Yeah.
This is sound more,
Oh, I know,
Policy
I started
stuff, yeah.
policy.
Just kind of keep it
Yeah.
moving along.
So I'm happy with the numbers what I have now, but inspection and treatment are gonna go up, both on the water end and the wastewater. So that's something that we have to look at next year and the year after.
Sadie, did you want to mention something?
Anything else, gentlemen, ladies?
All right, John, thank you very much.
Yep, no problem, thank you.
All right. I'm going on to the transfer station, JR. On page 16, if you want to go through and let us know if there's anything from last year or anything you want to point out.
I'll be hanging myself. I was allotted so much money for 3 different buildings. In my estimation, and the contractor, better off just to burn them, do whatever, get rid of them, they're not worth fixing. It'll cost more to fix them than it will be to put in something to do it different. And we had to redo the deck up top where the people walk. And when we took the top off, we looked down, my ram is getting really, there's holes in the top of it. And my other ram down there for recycle, what we've had it welded twice. Dale did it once. And we did it, and the new, guy did it once. It's just, you know, the equipment's falling apart and the buildings are rotting from the bottom up. And as far as the prices go, NRA hasn't told me they gone up on anything yet. And the only question I have is down here on C&D Holland, you got Casella and Hammond. Well, Casella's the only one that doing anything for me now over there. Fred ain't doing nothing. I'm paying right through the nose for Casella, especially on recycle. And Casella doesn't have anything to do with NRA. It's all strictly Casella, that's it. And what they call in C&D, I call garbage, but they call it C&D, so. But that's all that is from my overloaded trucks and trailers that take 45 minutes to an hour to unload. And I can't hold up the public that long for one person. And I send out 2 cans of C&D every 2 weeks. And I send out a can of metal every two cans of metal every 2 weeks.
Who transports the metal?
Huh?
Who transports the metal?
Gentlemen on a Hartwick, I'm not, what is
Yeah,
it?
I can't think of the name.
I can't think, is it A&D? Is it A&D at Hartwick?
I had the hat on, this morning I threw it away.
They basically, they came and they,
That's real good. We get money every couple of weeks on.
yeah, we're doing much better because we're not storing
Alright.
on the ground. We're starting to get the actual
Yeah.
clean
Yeah.
weights for it as a result.
They're up
I
in,
can't think of their name.
Hartwick.
They are providing the service by providing dumpsters for the metal to be put in rather than being stored on the ground. And now we're getting a better per ton rate because it's clean metal.
Yeah, it's Harding, it's out of Nottingham,
Yeah, I think, I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Scranton.
Just to help out a little bit, I think what JR was referring to when he was talking about his building is in the CIP plan. We have proposing $30,000 for the recycling building and $15,000 for the small building by the garage that's in plan. There's another $8,000 that we've got going in for the proposing to go in for the fixing the support problems under the ramp that's stretched.
That's already been done.
It's already been
I
done.
didn't know how much
Underneath
that
the ramp,
cost.
you're talking about underneath the one you just talking about.
Yeah, the problem was, is once we opened that up and we were replacing the deck, we found all kinds of other issues underneath that we're gonna have to address. So we put a budget number in to make sure we could take care of that, because that was actually becoming a huge liability for the town, related to potential injury and things of that nature, so.
I think JR's point is that rather than fix it, we should tear it down and build new ones.
Right.
That
Yes,
Basically,
Bill Doing, buy some good used office trailers.
well,
But the only thing that's holding up Barry's recycling building is the drywall, and he lets go out
The conduit that goes out,
yeah.
the piece of galvanized conduit that holds the whole thing together, so that's not a lot of.
So hopefully you move it someplace else besides where it is.
Oh, I know, that's the problem, is the conduit goes right through the blocks, so.
Well, the roof is leaking, there's all kind of,
There's no
Indoor-
drainage on the bottom.
and during this
Yeah.
process, we're also looking at all of the condition of the equipment, because all the compactors are starting to have some issues, so we're looking at, before we go picking how we're going to do some of the repairs, we want to make sure we have a plan in place that, what is the long-term plan for upgrading the system?
I'm just curious, maybe I'm missing something here, but like, you look at the top of page 17, we have the TA budget, the Board of Selectmen budget, the department budget, and then the budget committee budget. Why is our line $16,000 more than, I mean, we haven't voted to increase that, so I'm just wondering, why is the budget committee line 132,000, for example, on the tipping, whereas the department is 116?
It's the timing of when we get the quotes. So we didn't get the quote from the city of Lebanon on the landfill costs until a couple weeks ago.
Okay,
So, because we just got the notice and they're looking at the upgrades they have to do, and for the next 5 years, we're gonna see 15% increase on an annual basis.
Each year, 15%?
Yeah.
So the 120 a ton is not.
120 is the first 15%, and then we're gonna be hitting 15 after that.
to answer your question, Nate, I mean, the biggest differential in the budget committee's number is health insurance.
Yeah, we had made the decision in one of the meetings that the other full timer that split between the three departments, we had wanted to see the health insurance split proportionately between the three departments. Where up until now, all that health insurance has been coded to the buildings and grounds budget. So that one person's health insurance is now 24 out of 40 hours a week being charged to the transfer station. So the decrease would be in the buildings and grounds budget.
Do you have a real plan for the 20,000
Which
for the repairs, the recycling site improvements, 20,000?
no, that's just an estimate right now until we know exactly how we're gonna be able to fix these, because once we went out there and started looking, the problems are growing, so we actually gotta make a plan as to how we're gonna deal with that.
Has the board got enough clarification, Board of Selectmen got enough clarification yet to know whether they wanna have at least one ramp in that site? And if so, the Brismite, just got a flag from come out already about equipment trades in 3 different locations, 3 different sites. It might be something to go after to get that grant, if you decide that you're going to have a ram in there somewhere in this site.
We're gonna have to have Rams, as far as Is what, one thing we understand is, the only recycling that returns anything on its value is, cardboard. So the question is, do we start splitting the recycling compactor into two compactors that you actually can put the cardboard in, because that's more than half of what we're putting into our recycling, and it's also the only one that returns money, so it actually could become a significant reduction in the cost of what we're spending on recycling. So this is what we're investigating right now, but we're early in the stages.
I think up until now, at least, there's been a consensus by all the parties, stakeholders. Everybody else, that the bigger the load, you can move the trash at least to the landfill, the better off it is.
That's right.
12%.
That needs a ramp.
Right, no, yeah, we're going to have them, I mean, there's just a matter of what the configuration is. There's no question.
And they were arguing in the NRA mailing, the one I just got it 2 days ago. And it indicated that you could be going after northern border money, there's a block of money in northern border for them. And there's a block of money in the federal, solid waste money as well,
The only problem with that is it's due the end of next month.
in May.
Oh, it's May?
In May.
May, okay. On the ETA or on the USDA?
And the northern border is May.
Oh, yeah, I know Northern Border.
I don't know what the other two are.
Yeah, there's other two.
But they just sent the notice up.
Yeah, I saw it. And, yeah, I saw it.
I tried calling NRA, what, 3 times today, and all I get was an answer anything. A long list of numbers, and none of the people I knew. The only one I knew was Bonnie.
It's
Sam?
out there forever.
Yeah. And I tried calling her phone was busy.
I did see all the training programs they're doing. I didn't recognize anybody doing the training program.
And I called them last week and give them my new phone numbers. Cause they can't call in, but I can call out, but now that's been situated, so.
Well, the other thing you can do, and this is for both of you, is DES has a more active role now. So call the DES contact that's in the SWAT, SWOT program and see if they can help you do the call for the grants. Okay, so if you can't get through the NRA, call SWAT, and they're more active than they've ever been.
Any other questions for JR? JR, do you want anything else?
The state wants to split it out between what's done locally to, we got it ready to go. It's done, supposed to. So they set up 2 it's crazy system, they set up 2. So,
The collections are what we're doing at the.
at the transfer station.
With the ramps and.
I'm gonna say a couple more things, I'm gonna end up all being buried here, but. I know 2 people. Possibly 3. That don't live in this town, but they got stickers, they got them through their parents' address in town. And they come in overloaded every Saturday. And. According to them, it's free, why not go? You're gonna have to do something about. Either gonna have to charge, pay as you throw, or dump stickers, or both. But right now, we're bleeding money in us. There's only one way to stop it. We're getting people in from other towns, or using their parents' address, they live in some, it's ridiculous.
Have you brought this up to the select board, JR? 'Cause
What?
Have you brought it up to the select board? Cause I think that's more the appropriate meeting. And
Well, I'm bringing it up to anybody that'll listen to me.
Well, then I appreciate that
And
too, but I think,
Then they tell me, to go piss up a rope.
who's telling you to go piss up the road?
They tell me I go piss up a rope, because I don't know what I'm talking about, it's free.
Right. So, here we go.
The taxpayers are paying for it. While they live in another town and get away with it.
Well,
It's their town charges.
Let's face, Lebanon charges 120 a ton, and we're charging that.
What?
I said, Lebanon is charging us 120 a ton, never mind all the labor and processing costs.
Yeah. I'm just frustrated with these people.
If I remember correctly, there was some conversation that's maybe about redoing the sticker business that you've done on, has that gone anywhere? We
Well-
have been moved along at all, or?
No, not at this time.
Yeah.
We talked about it again Tuesday night. We talked about many different things. Paying for stickers. Reissuing the stickers every year. Negotiating contracts with Orange. Changing the whole, we have talked about many things.
The sticker is limited to, the number of registrations one has.
No,
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 so
actually,
you just do that?
well, the
You get
issue,
2 cards, you get 2 stickers.
what's happened is the stickers haven't been like, they don't expire.
Yep.
So what's happening is the numbers just growing over time and now we want the newer spreadsheet we have, we're starting to see like one address might have 8 stickers out. You know what I mean? So the issue right now is we do need to evaluate the ordinance, we do need to evaluate the fees, and then we need to say, okay, we're gonna start on this date and everybody has to get a new sticker or you can't come in here, because otherwise we gotta clean up. We gotta get rid of all of the other extraneous stuff so we can actually see what's going on. And I think the key is, you know, if we are charging something similar, you know, whatever the number is of our neighboring towns that have transfer stations, then we don't a benefit for them to travel further to get the free dump. So like, we just gotta be in that same level as everyone else, I think. So that the residents can take advantage of the transfer station, and we don't have the
Why would you
exorbitant
have to
cost.
charge? I guess is my point.
Well,
You're collecting from the registrations, so. If you limit it to, you have a registration, you got 2 vehicles, what do you need 3 dump stickers?
Well, but then the problem is, are you saying he's gonna check every registration when they come through?
No, but they wouldn't get a sticker from the town unless they had a registration for their car, right? You'd have to issue them, I guess, every year. You know, updated.
Yeah.
they're actually fairly expensive now. I mean, it costs us like $1,500 to get 800 or 600 stickers. So it's just it's really, and also when you look at it, you're looking at the town having a $320,000 a year expense budget with no revenue stream at all, except for the metals maybe and things like that. And it's just offsetting costs, but also controlling abuse. And I think those 2 things are why you want to go there. Because otherwise there's no keeping track of how this issue is happening. You know,
I
it's just,
suspect starting to charge for dump stickers is not gonna be terribly popular.
well, every other town I think has that.
We don't live in every.
So say New York, I have to buy a dump sticker.
I mean, I buy dump stickers and I buy $3 a bag in my town. So it's like every year it's a $25 dump sticker and it's $3 a bag.
I'm just saying, you might end up finding a bunch of trash on, you know, over embankments in the town. That's what's gonna happen.
And that's a similar community with similar mentality,
Right.
not a problem, they don't have a problem.
And we should say that it's not free. This is part of our taxes.
Well,
It is.
again, remember
It's not a
that,
fee like water and sewer, it's a fee. But for whatever reason, we decided not to have trash be a fee.
right, because the issue is the town has an expense and that 320,000 does not include any capital expense at all. That's strictly operations. So the cost is up and we know that, you know, and my opinion is if you attack the low hanging fruit, issuing the stickers annually, having a fee for the sticker, and then making sure we update our ordinance related to commercial users, because there's people that are coming in, we don't know where that trash is coming from. And that's where this overflow issue that JR was talking about, is they're going to the overflow dumpsters and we're probably getting, you know, some of it's coming from Canaan, but some of it's coming from Enfield, they're coming from here, and the taxpayers are paying for that burden. So if we don't do something to start to slow that bleeding a little bit, you know, it's just gonna continue to grow.
But it sounds like the select board is exploring options for this, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, at one point, we had a list or something and you were supposed to check off when people came in, but that's just not feasible either. A list of what stickers were out there. I mean, I don't see how we, especially like on a Saturday, it's not gonna be able to do that. And then if we change color every year, it's like people register their car all through the month, and how does the person working know which color to accept? And I mean, JR is allowed to turn people away if he feels they're doing that, if they're giving him a hard time. Yeah.
When they show up with a load and they got a dumpster right on the windshield or on the bumper, what can I've turned away 3 already. Cause they point blank told me they came from out of town, and I told them, get out.
Did they go?
Huh?
Did they go?
Did they know?
Did they go?
Oh, yeah,
They did, okay, then.
without a
Become
fuss, they
abusive,
tried,
that's the other.
Right, yeah, we don't want that.
No.
People-
yeah.
A couple of comments, if I could. First one is something like half of the towns and cities in New Hampshire, and I know a chunk of Vermont as well, have gone to paving through. I know it's not popular, okay? It wasn't popular in New Hampshire when we started doing it, but the overriding issue for voters is, how do I know if I get charged for trash, that I'll see a savings in the budget? So somehow you gotta tie that cost to that service and not just take the savings and put it into another department. They would have to see that. That isn't an incentive to keep people to do something else like recycle it or compost it or whatever. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is the stickers are out of date by at least 7 years. And we tried a bunch of different things over 12 years to fix it. And you're right, it's more expensive, especially if you have numbered stickers. On the other hand, just my own thought is that if you got rid of the numbers, you do an annual sticker with a different color, got rid of the numbers. And they have to prove that they're a resident, I don't know what you're doing now, but the proof was you had if you were renting, you had to show some type of a utility proof, and if you owned it, you'd have to show that you were a taxpayer in the town. And I don't know what the policy is, it was sort of squiggy with, if you were a taxpayer, but you didn't have a house, you still get the right to use the trash, and I have no idea what that is, I don't really care. But by doing that cheaper sticker and doing it every year and doing an annual verification, it's a pain in the ass for the town office. It's really bad, and it was a pain in the ass for them. And it might be better just to hire somebody to go up there and do it on the spot for 2 or 3 weeks to get the stickers out. All I can tell you is that you are getting trash from out of town. There was a period, I think about 5 years ago, where I was told by car dealerships that there was extra value in the car if they had a Canaan dumpster, because it had free trash. So,
I mean, personally, I would just like to see Casella come in and take over the whole operation, and it's outside of the town and they run everything.
yes, but you gotta look at the price, it's very expensive. Ask NRA, or ask the other towns who use it.
I've asked some of the other towns.
Okay. Prove me wrong.
I think we're looking at the point now where we're gonna have to replace significant equipment. And I think we would have to factor a lot of things.
Well, yeah, basically,
It's
as,
not a decision that we're, like, you just said it, in 12 years, there was no solution.
well, I think that's the key this winter. We're gonna try and look at what the options are and what the capital outlay will be to bring the transfer station up to a functional level, and we know it's gonna last, and then say, okay, now if we're gonna put this much money into it, what's the value versus the alternatives? We're gonna have to evaluate that at some point. Cause I don't think I don't think we're far off if we're talking 50 to 100K just to bring that into some sort of level.
Is there an option of leasing over there, like you do with the highway department? I mean, the town, the boards had a general consensus, the town voters voted it in, so it can't be that negative of an appeal. And is there an option of leasing some equipment?
Yes, the compactors can be leased, and because we've done that in multiple places, then usually they'll do like a 10-year lease.
Yeah. but I
But
mean,
it
like-
usually ends up with a Casella, so the lease isn't too bad, but you gotta use them for all your poles.
Well, I mean, like I said, no,
Yeah,
no, that's not,
I know.
I'm talking lease a roll-off truck. Lease the equipment needed, do a municipal leasing program, to lease the equipment we need for the transfer station. just like we did for the immediate needs for the highway department. Has it been explored at all?
No, I don't think so, but I know we talked about forming a group of people that would want to investigate and. I think we would be one of people.
You?
Yeah, with that, I'm about
Are you-
Okay.
Been on my notes
Yeah,
for
the
3
biggest
years.
challenge with keeping all of it in-house operationally as far as truck driving is going to be finding in today's market, CDL A or B drivers that are going to be willing to work at the transfer station and have that be their job long-term. So, I mean, we're lucky to have JR. Well, that's my point is, you know, if we got another 20 years out of JR, we're good, right?
But I think the reality of it is, if you got a roll-off truck, you only need a class B CDL endorsement. And the majority, if not all, of the highway department workers have a class B CDL endorsement. So if for a few designated hours a week, someone from the highway department could make the runs with the roll-off.
Well, these are all things we'll have to evaluate because the cost of the trucks are pretty high and so is the
Oh.
maintenance cost, so.
Oh, I know.
You know, so we'd have to evaluate their profits. We're just in the, like, again, the beginning stages of evaluating what possibilities are. But for this year, it's staying where we are. We have some money in the capital budget to do some improvements, and we're gonna have to figure out what those are gonna be, and we have to make a long-term plan. And we'll go from there.
Been in the beginning stages of investigation for years, and like we said at the other night, it's like, we're going, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be argumentative, I appreciate your effort. But at some point, somebody's gotta make a decision on it, it can't always be in the stages of investigation. It's on point.
towards the budget.
What's that?
I moved that we get back towards the budget.
A second.
All right, any,
All in favor?
anything else on the transfer station? All right, thank you, JR.
Well, see you later.
So, see you Saturday.
Yeah.
It's been a long, messy day.
All right, treasurer, page 3, Deb, would you like to, anything you want to say about your budget?
This is 2024 actual.
Sorry,
The 2024 actual figure. It's like half of the budget figure.
Yeah, the new payroll software that started in July is coding everything to one elected official account rather than breaking out trustees of the trust account and treasurer. So you have to scroll up to the 4150-10-130 line. Because that would be where the new payroll software is coding everything.
So what have you given you? Is the 6701? What you're planning on paying me next year?
Yes, except now it's in the new, like, if you look at the comment below that line, combined with 014150-10-130. That's where the new payroll software is gonna be coding everything going forward.
Page 2, then, on their financial information, you'll send a line. Page 2007, I think it's kind of at the bottom. So Carrie Ann, is the total, is that just treasurer, or is that's treasurer and assistant treasurer?
And it's others, I believe the moderators in that one.
In that line, it's page, it wasn't page 2, it was. And it's $8,319, which is what was in it, $8,701 is in it. And that included trustees of trust funds, 1,000, treasurer, 6,700, and assistant treasurer, 1,000. And that gives you $8,700. And that's under financial administration.
Just not bottom.
That's the second line down. 4150.
Official salary, yeah. 000.
So all the way over to, far right column.
You see.
Mike, what will those numbers be?
$1,000 for trustees of trust funds, treasurer was 6,700, assistant treasurer was 1,000.
So the number's the same, but it's split up. Somewhere different. And it looks like for your department really, just up to 350 for office supplies, I think is what.
Some of them here, I don't know, right? Oh, okay, that's under the department when it says 350. And then training,
You don't have any salaries anymore on page 3 of the new one. They've been moved. So if you look under 2025 town administrator thing, and you go down from 4150, 820, all the way down through. The ones that typically you would look at is 4150, 5120, assistant treasurer. And then treasurer's salary down below, and if you look over under the town administrator, there's nothing there. Because it's in a new account. And that new account is somewhere.
At the bottom of page 2.
Bottom page. Yeah, exactly. So what you're looking at on 3. Salaries are on page 2 under financial administration. Do we pay the assistant treasurer now?
Yes,
Linda Walker.
It was 4%, what were we using? 4%?
yeah, we did the 4%, and then the people that were less than $1,000 got bumped up to 1,000. With the moderator.
Yeah, I think I read questions a few times.
Yeah.
I now remember. Yeah.
I'm good,
All right, thank you.
I guess I'll leave too.
Okay.
What else we got good coming up? Is that it?
Up there, Monica. Page,
Welfare?
welfare, which page? Oh, page 18.
I'm not as fun or entertaining as the rest of them. So. Basically my budget, I didn't touch any of the dollar amounts, everything stays the same. That was just due to, I have a lot more resources available to us. I have a cold weather package. Grant up to $500 to use for hotels. Other types of resources that we can get reimbursed. Yeah, that's about it.
But the budget is up, right?
The budget is up because of healthcare. Half of the healthcare is now in this line, in this budget.
Okay, I see salaries for the 24 budget was 19 and now it's 26. And down under the one that's 14 and well, that's Medicaid, yeah, the Medicare payments. In the retirement, oh, it's because it's now required to salaries at a point where it's now required for
Yes.
retirement. It was never retirement there before.
Right.
And down under the. Have you already addressed the vendor payments? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't change any of those. Those same as last year.
And the year to date, that's a question, Carrie Ann. The year to date we see on here, what was that actual date?
It was run today, 11/21. If you look in the lower left hand of the report. on
I
all the
know, but
pages.
is that, so the column says 2024 actual, that is up to date as of today?
Yep, it includes all this week's check runs.
So the reason I'm asking is because under the department, year to date, which is now almost the end of the year, we've only spent 10 grand, but we still have 40 in the budget. Likewise, in the fuel assistance, we've only spent 1,100 and we've got 4. I assume you're using mostly the heat assistance, fuel assistance.
Yeah, it has,
And are we doing the same thing? We'll tell them to get the use of electricity and. But there's a telephone electricity benefit, I'm sure we're using. So. I thought we would have more money. I was actually going to push for more money for housing because I thought it was all gone. But you don't see that, so I'm not sure we really ought to be running it at 40,000. If you look back at prior years, you can't see it here, but if you went back before COVID, it was really more like 10,000 or 15,000 a year. So I'm only pointing it out because right now the budget is 900,000 increase, which is a $2 increase in the tax rate.
Well, it's not up that much. We'll talk about that later.
I guess my point is, you know, if we've been spending 24, 21, and 10,000 this year on, rent assistance, why do we have a $40,000 budget?
Well, at least for this group, I would suggest we talk about it when we get to that.
Okay.
Well, and are we being less generous, or you have other resources to help?
we just use other resources.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're shorting people. I think
I
we're
never,
doing
well,
right.
I just. Don't know. Okay.
Well, shouldn't we change it to 20,000 now? And if you want to, but there's at least 40 lines like that.
I think we had it as less than 40,000 last year and we pushed to increase it, if I remember correctly.
That is
You do.
correct.
And I was the one that pushed it. The reason I pushed it is because the ARPA money was gone. And then I thought we ought to have more money in light of the fact that all the federal money was gone, all the stuff that was paying for hotel rooms and all the rest of this. As it turns out, I think most of it is going through Tri-County Cap or through Listen or one of the other programs. So there is now a year's evidence saying it doesn't need to go to 40. So I agree that we.
I
ought to
also have the
reduce
winter
it. I
shelter.
think 20 is a good number. It just, that means this is out of the 40 lines. We ought to be looking.
What were you saying there?
Nothing, I'm all set, thank you.
You want to make a motion or change it to 20? You sound like you.
No, I'm all set, thank you.
It's only your voice. You
So-
think it's gonna be different next year? Intention doesn't improve, you know, she does.
Well, the minimum, if you look at the prior years, the 1 year, it was a 22, was 24,500, so I wouldn't necessarily want to go much below what you've had in an actual in the last couple of years. I mean, it may still be
I think
good.
that's appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm fine with 25, I just don't
Yeah.
think it'll be a 40.
I mean, yeah, and if we have the other sources, that works.
Didn't give us enough options like that.
Yeah, Mark, we gotta talk about it when you go move. No, yeah, I didn't realize this is a sensitive topic.
I have a question. You said, Monica, you said you have more sources, but what about demand? Do you see demand more?
There's
And
always gonna be a demand.
no, I know there's always demand, but I'm saying, is the demand increasing and you're still funneling those people to other sources or?
Yeah, I
you-
mean, winter's coming, so we're gonna have increasing and heating assistance, electrical assistance is coming around the corner.
Right.
So, you know, if I have a shelter that I can fall back on for those folks that do need it, if I don't have the funds.
Monica, are you comfortable with 40? Are you comfortable with reducing it to some point, but maybe not all the way to 20? And what do you suggest?
Yeah, we can reduce it by 10. I'd be comfortable with that, yes. Yep.
That was the 10 that was added last year, right?
Yes.
That's a 25%.
Mhm. I'm okay with that.
Well, I'll make a motion to reduce it up to 30,000. Rent assistance, yes.
We'll get a motion, a second, any further discussion? And this is to change it on our budget committee line, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I have it. Anything else you want to say, Monica, or
No, thanks.
any other questions for Monica?
No.
All right, thank you.
I would
Oh.
like to say,
Yes.
that since Monica has come on, we have seen that she's really utilizing other resources that are available in the community before coming to the budget. She's working with people to try to develop a plan to get them back on their feet instead of just,
Just giving them.
yeah, so she works really hard and I think she really cares about the people she's helping. We appreciate her efforts.
Yeah, but there's, no one puts too much pressure on you either, you know what I mean? So we want to make sure you have enough money to do what you have to do. That's regardless, right?
Yep.
Okay. Don't be afraid to speak up about that. please.
When it comes next October, if you need another 10,000, selection is what we get.
That's right.
Select board. Select board.
Let's get this straight.
Someday, Sandy, someday.
Can't teach an old dog new tricks.
You don't want to.
That's what you do.
Ken, you just have to have a bigger stick.
Yeah.
You're not that old.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have on here selectmen's proposed budgets. I think that was sort of a carryover. I don't know that there is a, I mean, do you have anything you want to present on that? I mean,
I'm not.
okay. And then we have revenues and then we have, stuff that you guys want to talk about. And then a point that, Carrie Ann brought up to Michael and I after the last meeting with regard to the library. And so what do we want to do next? Do we want to go right to revenues? Do we want to talk about these other things, do revenues last? I don't.
We have revenue budget?
Yes, it was handed out today.
It's in the back of what Carrie Ann handed out.
I think, what point are we hoping that Sean is here for? If we could do that first. and
Yeah.
then-
Well, that's what I was just gonna suggest. Basically, Sean is here because we do have a bunch of changes and I'll call it housekeeping based on some of the changes. It kind of is a preamble to the CIP meeting in a couple of weeks. So
Is it known on?
does everybody know the Sean Tangby, he's the town attorney. He's going to be assisting with some of these modifications of things we've identified that or need to be addressed in some of our reserve accounts and things of that nature. But the goal is, we are looking at, as we did the leasing this past year with the finance, with the highway equipment. We are looking at making sure we have individual reserve accounts for each one of our capital items. This year, we're hoping to add a road reconstruction reserve account, which will allow all things road related, whether it's paving, gravel, the reconstructions, and to be covered in a reserve account, so we can actually kind of level the funding as we go forward. Actually, what will be happening in a case like that, where we already have the money in the operations budget, it will be a transfer to a new reserve account. There's no additional funds required and no expense. And that's happening in several areas. A couple of the other things that the CIP group has identified, which I'm kind of trying to steal a little bit of Claude's thunder, is the fact that we're adding other things besides, let's say, vehicles, like we use police as an example. There's other significant capital items that become a real issue in an operations budget when you have to go buy cruiser cameras and it's $125,000 every few years. It's hard to capture that. So what we're looking at is trying to get a replacement system in place. So we've been talking about, like, the lease that we already have would be paid out of existing roadway funds. And if we have to incorporate leasing or purchases, and also changing the kind of equipment that are in, that we are currently allowed to put money in for in the reserve accounts and what we can use it for. So we're going to be adding some of the collective non-vehicle related costs, like cruiser cameras and things like that, to the capital fund. And one of the things we identified on the police side is, when we were looking to Sean to say, okay, can we add cruiser cameras and things like that? And it turns out our reserve account didn't have all of the information it needed to be a correct reserve account, and then we have to like kind of remove that one, recreate it, and then add these functions that we want to do. So if you want to speak to that at all, or
Yeah, I mean, so we found that the town, for something years past, created a police cruiser capital reserve fund. It had no purpose in the language, and the statute requires that you explicitly provide the purposes of the capital reserve fund. And for some reason, the town just adopted capital reserve fund for police cruisers, which doesn't give you any direction as to what that purpose is. So the idea is that we're gonna try to rescind that capital reserve fund. The money that's there now, we go back by operation of law into the general fund. We're then gonna propose an additional warrant article to recreate the capital reserve fund, put in the appropriate purposes, and try to account for all the things that the town may want to spend money on from that fund. And then, as addition to that, we're also gonna request an appropriation consistent with the money that's going into the general fund. So we'll be withdrawing money from the unreserved fund balance, but it's money that's going into that from the dissolved fund. So it's not as though we're taking money from the fund that doesn't, up for other purposes.
So when you say other purpose, I assume they're all gonna be related to cruisers, though.
It has to be all related to the
Yeah, like-
subject, yeah.
Rit LiDAR, radar,
Yeah,
cameras.
it's accessories to the police
Shotguns,
capital
things like
usage,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, if you want the specifics, it's body cameras, cruiser cameras, tasers, handguns, and ballistic vests.
Okay. Because right now, as it's written, you can't interpret it to include those things.
I don't think you can interpret it to anything.
Well, like you said, but the advice is let's clean it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If I could, I had asked back in August that you come and that somebody from DRA come and somebody from the accounting firm. So if I could, is this okay to ask the questions that I posed back there?
Well, while we're on this, I think Karen had a question about.
Is there a way to make it legal but sufficiently flexible? Because if the police department comes up with some new equipment that would be in a new technology, that we have to redo the warrant article all over again to include this new item, is there some way to word it that it can be flexible?
Yeah, I think that's our intent, is to try to create as much flexibility with the fund as possible, so we're gonna be using, all manners of cruisers, ATV vehicles, accessories to those vehicles, as well as any other aids. For the purpose of those vehicles, so that's the idea behind it.
So it does have some flexibility, it doesn't, because you just listed specific items, and I'm thinking, 2 years from now, we're gonna have some new.
But you didn't say printer, right? No. And the chief just told us printer yesterday, Tuesday. In the cruiser. He's got a grant to do this. But printers in the cruiser.
So
And next year
there
it'll be
is a
something
way to
different.
write it,
Yeah.
so that we don't have to redo it in 3 years
Right.
when
Yeah.
there's some new super thing. that we need.
Yeah, you just wanna be able to address the fit out.
Yeah,
So Mike, to address your point, this meeting wasn't for DRA, and I think I know where you want to go with this, but I kind of want to focus on what attorney's here for with presentation.
Well, I am asking specifically about legal opinion. Are you gonna bring it back again?
Well, I mean, we had talked with Chet about, because I remember that meeting you were talking about, we didn't end up having it because DRA couldn't come, and so,
Well, I'm gonna read them in my list.
well, how long is your list? 'Cause I don't want to
I
be
know,
here till 10 o'clock tonight.
the issue is, once we'll just complete the discussion about the warrant articles.
Yeah.
And then this is the time to ask the questions, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But we'll finish, anybody who wants to talk more
I
about,
don't
like,
have
we're gonna
problems with
just,
anything I've heard so far.
Right.
The issues about the process and what's allowed, what's not allowed.
right,
Let's do that, and then we can see what you're, but again, I don't want to start taking tangents, because this wasn't, I didn't realize we were gonna be doing this tonight, so. it's fine, but.
Right, well, the issue, where it's pertinent is the issues of what you're talking about in some of these budget line items right now and how how we're modifying this to capital. So when you see the capital budget in 2 weeks, you're gonna see a certain amount of money, but some of that's coming from here.
Yeah.
It's just a transfer that has to be in the warrant articles and making sure that that's clear. There's gonna be other articles that don't require the level of correction that police did, but it may require a slight modification because the capital budget committee determined this year, we're gonna work with the definition, and the reason it came up is our auditor was using a very different calculation for what was capital, but than what the budget, the capital budget committee, and we're trying to get everybody on the same system, which is $10,000 purchase price and at least a 5-year life is kind of where it is right now. And there's groups of things like cruiser cameras or body cameras, you know, they might be $6,000 or $7,000 a piece, but when we buy them, we got to buy 8 of them. So it's a $40,000 purchase. So we're trying to get the funding to stay consistent. So I think that's the goal. And the questions were related to, you know, what are we doing with the legal side of this and some of the other issues with that. And then I would say that, yes, him asking the question, because we did have the back and forth email a little bit. And he wanted to get further clarification, and I'm fine with that.
This is to do with the reserve fund balance question that you.
It's something.
Yeah, so, okay, so let's continue on with the, wait, I guess,
You want to do revenues right now, or you want to let?
oh, is that it? Was that all you had, was just for this?
Yeah,
one
this
warrant
was,
article?
yeah, there's a significant amount, we're back up at the ground right now as it sits, I think I'm at 38 warrant articles, and a lot of it's because of just housekeeping issues.
Okay.
And things of that nature, and a couple of new creations, I mean, they were putting back a cemetery trust group of trustees, like there's a few things like that, but we don't need to discuss that today, but
Oh, okay,
it was just a matter of, you know, what was the legal aspects, and we had the availability for Sean to come tonight, and
Okay.
I knew that there was gonna be
Oh,
other
okay.
questions.
yeah,
So we have all these warrant articles we have to rescind and redo?
No,
No.
no, that's the only one that's a rescind.
Okay.
I said, there's a couple that are like, okay, we wanna,
Pretty-
a couple of them were adding some function issues too, you know what I mean, things like that.
all right, Mike, we'll, go ahead and, ask away.
And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to clarify. First one is on a variety of things all related to process. The first one is related specifically to capital reserve. I don't remember the answer to this, so I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just curious. Can money from the general fund? Money from the general fund can be used to pay a lease if the lease is approved by the vote, right?
Yeah, money from the general fund. What you're saying, money from the general fund can be used to pay.
If you get a line item in the general fund budget that says lease payments for whatever. And that was approved. It's a multi-year lease. It's approved by the voters. They had a vote and they approved it. So they can take money. I don't know. I'm asking, can they take money out of the general fund to pay the lease?
If there was a lease, if a lease appropriation was submitted to the town meeting and was approved,
Yes.
then you're gonna be raising those funds by through your tax rate. So you have the
So it does not
authorization,
go to the general fund.
well, all the money that you, ostensibly all the money that you collect from taxes go into the general fund.
How would the voters know 4 years from now on a 10-year lease where the money was coming from? Look, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just trying to understand. There's a lease.
Yeah.
We've already, I think.
Are you asking if I want to do a warrant article every year? Is that what you're saying?
No, I want to know whether the money comes automatically out of the capital reserve, whether the money can come out of the capital reserve, whether the money can come out of the general fund budget once it's authorized, or do you just plug it in another line on the rate set?
If it's just a general lease where you have an appropriation for just. You have a lease warrant article, if you have a warrant article for lease, and you're seeking to get an appropriation. Just say $10,000 for the year.
Yeah.
That money is considered to be a general appropriation, so it's coming out of the town's general fund
Is that
buying through.
non-lapsing or just that 1 year?
Well, it depends upon the terms, it depends upon the language of the warrant article, and depends upon the authorization provided.
So if you, just as an example, if the warrant article said the lease, RV for 5 years, $100,000. And that's all it said, yes, no, and the answer is yes. Where does that show up after that date in terms of DRA reporting? Where does it show up in terms of the budget process? You've seen all the documents here tonight. Where would that appear, where that money's coming from, so the voters would know that there is 10,000 coming out to pay for that RV?
So I don't know the accounting reporting that you're asking for, that seems like you're asking for certain accounting DRA, so I can't answer that, but.
Well, it's like this.
In terms of the legal authority, if you have a warrant article that seeks to raise and appropriate the sum of, say, $100,000 for a 5-year lease, and that by itself can be considered to be sufficient for the purposes of raising and appropriate that sum. Question is when do you raise that? Well, so it all depends upon the language of the warrant article. So if you have a 5-year lease and you're gonna have, you need to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 per year. Generally speaking, most towns will say, see the town to approve a 5-year lease for greater $100,000, $20,000 to be raised and appropriated for 2025. That $20,000 is coming out through taxation in 2025. The following year, you should have a subsequent warrant article raising just the $20,000 for that cost item for that year. You don't have to seek additional approval.
And so let's assume whatever you're gonna do, you'll take care of that. Now, the next thing is, in this budget we have tonight, there is a line, maybe still in here, I'm not sure. But there is a line for like 169,000 that's supposed to go pay for equipment. Okay. In the past, when I tried to do that, several times with the DRA, they said I couldn't do it. They said I could not take. This is not directly a point, but what they made clear to me was that the select board could not put money into the proposed general fund budget that would go into a capital reserve. So they can put money into the budget to pay the lease.
Yes.
And it's in, okay, my concern is. We shouldn't be assuming that we can take money out of the general fund budget to put into a capital reserve.
Right, can't do that.
The DRA said that several times, we can't do it.
No.
That was the first one. Second one, I don't care about the rest, I'll assume you guys work out the wording. This is, gross budgeting. Okay. I don't know what the answer is. I know that I don't think we did it right in the past years. So when there's a grant, and if you get a grant, then it's $5,000. It's not a huge issue. But if you had a grant that came in for $100,000 for equipment. How do you do that under the rules governing the budget that says that the budget that goes to the voters has to include all the money to be expended? In the past, I know there have been cases where we were gonna spend 10,000. And it required 25% match. It only showed the 25% match in the budget. My concern in looking at it recently, like in the last couple of weeks, is, well, should we, if we know we're gonna get a grant, and let's make it huge, just for the sake of argument, and we know it's gonna be $100,000. And we know that we have to put 25,000 in this budget that goes to the voters and goes to DRA and is part of the MS2. When we do that, the question is, do we put in 100,000 there and then put in 80,000 over the income? Or do we put in just the match?
Just to match, because if you put in the rest of the amount, the DRA is gonna count that towards the tax rate.
Not if there's income. See, here's my problem. All the stuff we've ever gotten from the municipal association, the DRA says gross budgeting is rule. You can't just go willy-nilly throw some more money on top unless it's unexpected funds. and you do the hearing and you get approvals, okay? All right, so here, the situation I gave you is, it's not that, we know we're gonna get this grant, and it's gonna be a large grant. And what DRA has in the past said, and I'm asking you from a legal point of view, are they right or wrong? They've said that gross budgeting is a rule. You cannot spend the money unless you've told the voters you're gonna spend the money. And shown the revenue. So in the revenue side, there's a budget that goes to the voters with the revenue side, and it's part of what's submitted to the state after town meeting. If I were using the 100,000 as an example. 75,000 was coming from the Diddley Squat grant fund. And 25,000 had to come from the public. Then on the revenue side, we would show the 75,000. Which means that we would not be asking the voters for the 75,000. Because by definition, the tax rate is supposed to be based on the income that you have as of roughly September, October.
I mean, if you are absolutely certain that you're gonna get grant money.
Yeah.
And you're looking to get the match fund, get the match for the grant.
Yeah.
One option would be to put a special warrant article, so you raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 as a match for X grant. $80,000 that come from the grant, resulting in $100,000 available for the purpose of whatever it is, XYZ.
Let's say it was for a home for wayward orphans.
Okay,
And you're afraid that the voters, if you're giving them the option, they think they're gonna save $75,000, they say no. It would not be, I would support putting it in on the revenue side and the expense side, which is what the DRA says we have to do. If we knew for a fact we're getting that grant. If we don't know for a fact we're getting the grant, then I think the rule applies, so we do the hearings and approve it that way.
I don't have an issue with the town seeking out grant money, seeking out the match money, buying through the warrant articles. And then dealing with the grant when it comes in as unanticipated funds. You know, because I guess the question
Okay,
is.
that's how it's
Yeah.
been, what you just said.
Yeah.
I'm scared that somebody's gonna raise an issue someday and say, look, DRA told us this, it's in the, knowing the territory. Everybody says that you cannot spend money in a general fund budget unless it's been appropriated for that purpose.
Yeah, but I would always argue that a grant is always gonna be an unanticipated fund. I mean, it's very rare to have absolute certainty you're getting a grant,
But we don't do it for road grants, highway grants,
so. That's,
and we don't do it for meals and rooms. It's in the budget. We show on the revenue side, we're gonna get meals and rooms taxes, and we show we're gonna get the highway aid.
well, yeah, but those are state programs.
Well, so wayward orphans grant, I mean, we're talking about things like water and sewer grants, we're talking about
Yeah.
police grants and fire department grants, those are where they show up.
Yeah,
And they usually occur, but not always. And I know there's several pending in the police department. And I don't know the answer, again, I'm asking you. But I do know that it's very clear, everything that we've ever learned and been told by DRA. They expect the voters to know if you're getting a grant in, like highway grant. You show in the income side that you're getting this money here, and you show over on the expense side. That's where it's gonna be tied. So I'm asking if it doesn't make sense to follow that rule and try to do both the revenue and the expense side.
well, from a legal perspective. The only thing we're looking to do is get approval from the legislative body as to the expenditure
Right,
and to the purpose.
and there's a
So-
problem. So if you get approval from the body for 25,000, that's all you can spend.
Well, unless, again, if you determine it to be unanticipated funds, you just follow 3195
Okay,
and do the hearing
all right,
process.
that's fine. I'll live with that. I just want to know who's gonna depend on somebody that's the word. And I think I think I know the answer, but I don't, I've already have asked and you may already tell me. Can monies from the capital reserve be used to pay leases?
Yes, if it's within the purpose of the capital reserve fund.
Okay. Okay, the next one's, two other issues. This has to do with, reserve funds. We were told that DRA is requiring the town to have a minimum of 5% reserve fund. And I will say what I was told by a significant person in DRA, that no one in the DRA would tell any town that there is a requirement for a minimum amount to go into the reserve.
Who did you hear that from at the DRA?
Who did I give you the name?
Oh, I don't remember.
It was, I went to Sam Green, I asked Sam Green to tell me who to talk to, he told me who to talk to, he gave them the stuff, I gave him a copy.
So is it official budget committee paperwork, and is it something I can request a copy of? to find out who
I'll
that-
send you the email I sent him, I'll send. Okay, so the question is, again, the answer was unequivocally, and he went and checked it with Steve, it was Sam Green as well. He said, no, anybody that said that it's not, that's not the policy of the state of New Hampshire, and they said it improperly. That there is only a suggestion that it's 5%.
That's where our policy says recommended.
That's your policy, but it doesn't mean that necessarily it makes a lot of sense from a budgetary point of view. Because if you put in 5%
So we're not
of,
saying must, we're saying this is what is recommended by DRA.
yeah, okay, that's fine. But in August, when I asked the question, I got the answer, it was required. And I went to Nate right after the meeting, and I said, that's not required. And it's not required in the forms we fill out. It says recommend. I do not want to have an argument before we're done, saying, oh yeah, you gotta have that 5% in there. Right now, I think we're facing a. And I don't know how you're gonna fund the capital reserves, but in the capital reserves that are in the CIP plan, it's 578,000, the numbers that are in the plan, in the budget we got tonight are over 600,000. If that doesn't, if that all has to be funded on the tax rate, that means with the budget that you're proposing here of additional spending in the general fund, which is about 900,000. Plus I know you keep shaking your head, you're gonna have to show me and then I'll show you, okay? But if you have 900,000 that's in the general fund, and you got 600,000 that's on the capital improvements. If we have to, it makes a difference whether we gotta add another block of money on top of that for this 5% reserve. That's all I'm asking about, is whether it's mandatory to get that into the budget, because frankly, we can't afford it.
There's no mandate or requirement for fund balance, is what you're asking for.
That's what I'm asking.
That being said, there are agencies, including the New Hampshire Municipal Association, that has recommended guidelines for fund balance.
Yeah, and I agree, but towns do it all over the place. Some towns do 5%, 10%, 15% of the town budget. Some towns do 10% of the entire budget, including the school bond. School,
Sounds like us sometimes have negative.
$24 million of appropriations times 5% is a boatload of money that we would have to put into a reserve.
So we'll just never look towards it, like we have for the last 12 years.
So
Like
here's the
that, what you're
question.
saying?
I mean, I calculated the rates this afternoon based on what I had from Gary Ann the last week. Okay. So our current rate is 8 and change. If we approve $578,000 for the CIP, and if we approve the total budget that you got here, the rate goes up to almost, it goes over $11. For right now, $8. If you think the voters are gonna be happy about that, then go for it. I will never vote for it going up that much of an increase in the town budget.
So from a select board perspective, what we do, we look at what we have to work with. We look at the equipment that's falling apart, literally falling apart, roads that weren't paved properly.
And you can explain the
Property that was
increase.
taken and sold illegally to try to fund the town. And then we say, okay, people that live here, what do you want? They say, we want better roads, we need better equipment. So we say, okay, this is the cost, and then people get to vote on it. So they decided, they voted.
As long as you're not gonna be upset when I go to the deliberative session, use social media to point out that the taxes are gonna go from $7 to $11.
I mean, people should know that. People should know what the
They
taxes
should.
are going to go to. But I think trying to keep the taxes this big for so many years is why we're in this position that we're in now.
Okay, just to make it abundantly clear, you already went up 25%, I'm fine with that. You did that in this year's. And I know Carrie Ann, last year at this time, you told us it was gonna be 15%. I understand your math, I understand how you thought came to that. But at the time, I said, then the income has gotta go up at the same level in order to be 15%.
Now I'm gonna stop you right there. I said the expenditures only were increasing and now you're twisting the words.
Fine.
Because I also did the
I don't think
revenue
I-
budget,
fine.
which I was then told to redo to meet what you wanted done.
That's okay.
So I'm not
I'll-
gonna allow
I'll
that to
agree with
go.
all of that. So Roger, could you make a note that what I'm saying right now is that last year, I did say that the rate of the town rate was gonna go up 25%. I'm just saying, whether it's part of the discussion, because the next piece is, with the current estimates we have now, I believe that rate is gonna go up to, under the best of circumstances, $10.14 or $11.38.
So, can I respond to that?
Sure.
Well, first of all, the one thing that, you were just talking about gross budgeting and making sure that all expenditures are listed.
Yeah.
One of the issues that you're including, in your $600,000 increase in expenses is $407,000 of money that's going to be spent, that the revenue is going to be on the revenue side. It's actually a wash related to money that's coming out of capital reserves to pay for things that were part of it. So it's not an increase of $600,000. And the reality is, when you look at all of the revenue piece of this, and the adjusted, budget you just received, you'll notice that the total budget on the expense side, including the entire capital budget, is going up $130,000. Okay, in totality. So the one issue that we found was on the basically the comparison budget was the issue. There are three major items that were in the current budget, the 2024 budget, that were expenses in this current year that will not be expenses next year. And the program didn't pick those three up, and that totaled about $600,000. So the actual differential with those items back in the 2024 budget, that's the actual budget, going up by that much money, there's actually only $130 something thousand of increase in the total budget. The entire capital budget that the CIP put together is in here. All of those monies are already in this budget, so we're talking about 130 grand, which you're going to look at when you get to the overall worksheet, is you're going to see a net increase in the taxable revenue that we have to do, because we have a significant $300,000 reduction on the revenue side. Most of that, $243,000 or $5,000 of it, is when we were budgeting for delinquent tax revenue. Okay, that was something that was put in last year that Carrie Ann was pointing out. One of the issues with that is it's not money you can ever collect. And one of the issues that went to the 25% increase was the fact that when you put in a revenue that, okay, you may get delinquent tax revenue, but you always have the current year underfunding. So basically, the day you sign that's approved by the voters with that budget, you're $250,000 short on the first day, because you're budgeting a full amount of tax as if you're going to get it all, and budgeting for what you may get in from previous years. And every year, this past year, last December or last January, the shortfall was $243,000 that we did not collect in the current year's taxes. So we had a shortfall in that, and we are not including, and this is a recommendation from the DRA, plus it just makes you whole. You need to use the delinquent taxes to make up the difference so that you actually collect what you're planning on. So most of the increase of that $350,000 is from a reduction in not including delinquent tax revenue, not expense increase. The expense increase is a total of 130 grand. It's actually, to be honest with you, it's a net reduction in the overall expenditure revenue budget by $40,000, because if you look right above, when you get to the line on page 21, 01 general fund, the total line, the current budget that's listed in there is 6,952,165. And you will look at the 2024 budget, now that those numbers are correct, 6,835,000, it's $130,000 increase. Right above it, you'll see a line item in a warrant article for $172,000. That total is for two positions that currently don't exist. One is the fire chief that we're talking about putting in for increasing it. So you have technically, even if you approve that, you only have $130,000 increase. If that doesn't get approved, you have a $40,000 decrease in the budget overall. So there is no 600 or $1 million worth of budget increase. You got to look at both sides of it. One of the issues now that we're fund accounting, you got to always review, and I think it'll probably be something we want to look at next year, is to make sure that when we review certain departments that are going to have a revenue side, we got to look at the whole thing, because sometimes they both go up and it's actually a zero amount. So if you're only looking at the expense side, you're going to see a dramatic increase in expense, but you actually aren't seeing a net increase. And we got to make sure we're addressing that. So I think that's what's kind of skewing some of this conversation at this point.
Okay, I don't have any other questions, but I do want to respond very briefly on what you just said.
Mhm.
I didn't get this budget.
Oh, I understand. Right.
So I did, and I described this at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the document from the last meeting.
Which is why we went back and dug through the numbers.
Okay, so what I want to explain.
Yeah.
Okay. So I cut my analysis of taxes. I did not look at anything to do with capital reserves or
Right.
warrant, nothing,
Mhm.
okay? I just looked at the capital budget for the general fund,
Correct.
okay? So at the top of that page is where it stops. And all the stuff down below is all the stuff related to warrant articles and capital reserves. And what I found was, and I did the same thing for the 24 budget and the same thing for the 25 budget. Okay? So in the 24 budget, it was 500,000 that was warrant articles plus some other smaller stuff down below. So what it meant that was up at the top of the page where it says it's before warrant for paving, it was on the last one was the capital outlay, land and improvements, and Mount Mascoma Health, but that's where it stops, okay? Because that's where it's always stopped in the general fund, is capital improvements, trucks or buildings or whatever. All right, so what was the total? In last year, that total was $5,049,000.
Right.
On your pages.
Which-
Last minute.
And that's been corrected.
I gotta look.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to explain where my.
Oh, no, what I was explaining is your numbers made me go back and revisit.
And then the other piece of it was, I did the same thing in the 25 one.
Right.
And if you do the same analysis, it's 5,000,009. The difference between 5,000,009 is 900,000.
Oh, I understand.
So I have not had a chance to review this.
Right.
If in fact that's what it was gonna be, and what I discovered, I have not had a chance to change it in the last hour.
Oh, no, I understand that. I wasn't arguing that point. I was saying, I was hoping that we would get beyond the answer. I wanted to get to the answer before you had to ask that question.
Okay, well, I wanted everybody else to know why I said it.
That's fine.
I'm not trying to.
I understand, and me either.
My goal is that I'm trying to come up with a budget. I don't want to get up and stand up and say I don't approve the budget. I don't want to refuse that. I'm not. Only two people around here really refused over the past 10 years to sign the budget. I don't want to do that. And I don't want to go into social media. What I want to do is find something I think is livable, that the people I talk to think would be livable.
Right.
And I don't think an increase up to $11 on the tax rate is reasonable.
It's not.
So we gotta figure out a way mutually to see how we can make this work, okay? I have a lot of homework I gotta do between now and the next meeting to look at what you gave us, and I'm very happy we got it. My last issue is what's already there. And now I have the income, so I can go look at it. So my issues were, can the state force us to do, there's one of them. My first issue was, can the state force us to create a reserve account? The answer is no. That's what DRA has said. You want to challenge that, I'm okay with it, go ahead and challenge it. But I did go out and talk to the state to make sure that that was the correct answer, that is the correct answer. The other one, there were two other reasons. One is, I asked the accounting firm and he told me, how is the unassigned fund balance calculated? It's the same thing that I said all along, it's calculated several ways. The first way is at the end of the year, there's a preparation of the MS5, which is actually 535 or whatever. And the MS5 is where the accounting firm says that the unassigned fund balance was as of the end of the calendar year. fiscal year plus, what's the calendar? They said that's the first place. The second place is when the tax rate is set. And that has to, at that point, the DRA comes in and looks at what you've given them for revenue and expenses. And then they say that this is what your unassigned fund balance was based on everything you've gotten. And that's where the second statement comes in. And so and then the third statement is the actual closing of the books, but those are the ones. And it does go up and down, and it goes up and down primarily if you do an appropriation out of that unassigned fund balance. So that also was verified by the accounting firm. It's nothing for you because it's really the accounting functions. Although it is related to you in terms of what the MS 5 and 2 requires to put it. And the 5 is not done by any politician. It's all done by the accounting firm. And then the last one was,
Can I say something around that? But
Yeah.
I just want to make it clear that the goal of the select board is not to fund it to a minimum recommended percentage in a year. It's to fund it to get to that point in 5 years.
well, maybe do that when the increase in the tax rate's only 5%.
Where's that gonna be though, Mike? You held it flat for how many years?
You want to take the consequences of going up 25 or 40%? Okay.
The consequences right now, flat one.
Exactly. And
I
that's
do it out in the population, see what happens.
out as warrant articles, we want people to take and choose what they're comfortable with.
I go out if you want with public. I'm just saying that I could not support it. I know it's gonna do with my whole mobile home park.
Don't support it, but you know what, people are coming to us and saying, this is what we need in the town, and we're responding by saying, here's your option, vote for it, yes. or
That's
no.
politics. I'm just saying that I want to point out what I believe the rate's gonna end up being.
Okay. I have a question.
Right now, our calculation
You guys
is,
passed out this sheet here,
yes,
and this has a estimated tax rate of $8.86 based on what you've given us so far.
yeah, 9.3% is what it comes out at right now.
How do you get that number, by the way? How do you get the 9%? What numbers do you divide and add together that gets you 9.3%?
So you have to, all the column numbers are tied into the budget, so the operating budget appropriations would be the general fund plus the library, the special warrant articles would be that line that's totaling all the warrant articles.
Okay.
So you get the total appropriations and then less estimated revenues. So you have to look at the revenue budget to get the general fund total for that number. And then it compares to the 2024 tax rate, the estimated taxes to be raised. And then that's where the difference comes from. And then if you look at the trend of our valuation year over year, I put in a $470 million valuation based on the trend the last 4 years. And then that's how we calculated what the increase is actually looking at, because you have to consider expenses and revenue, not just expenses.
I'm a simple guy, so I look at it and say, okay, we were paying $8.20 last year. And we're now paying, we're estimating $8.86.
Yes.
That's not a 9% increase. Less.
About that.
It's just less, that's what I can say. It's
Okay.
not- It's, if you really want to know the number, let's see.
Well, you have
It's
to-
8.048%.
That the 9% is the estimated taxes to be raised. So you have to take the 2025 minus 2024 and then divide that by 2024 to get the percent. So it's calculating the actual dollars.
But at the bottom of the page that we're speaking of now, you're talking about $154 each. That's the median increase for the next year.
Yeah, our
Yes.
median home in Canaan is 233,000. So you basically just take the per thousand increase and times it by 233.
You're talking about $13 a month increase.
That's the way it reads right now.
Premature, I think, to talk about the end result until we actually, I haven't looked at the figures, you haven't looked at the figures.
I agree, but
Yeah, I know, but here's the thing,
that's the target.
I really don't think it's gonna be 9%. And I could be wrong, and I'll be the first one to say that at the next meeting if I find them wrong. But here are two people sitting side by side. His house is bigger than my house. A lot bigger than my house. It impacts, if there's a 15 or 25% rate. Last year, I said there was gonna be a 25%. I don't say what you said or Ariane or anybody else said. I said there was gonna be a 25%. You have a 25% rate this year. If somebody were to be paying $40,000 a year in property taxes. Town property taxes. And there are people that do pay that. Apparently on Mountain School, easily. They pay a lot more than. But if they're paying 40,000, then it goes up a quarter. A quarter, then it goes up $10,000. So what?
Well, the issue there is the town is only 20% of the total tax rate.
I only looked at the town tax rate. I wanna know what the town action, the town budget committee action, the town.
Oh, no, I understand that.
On the town budget.
Right, but I'm saying when you talk about somebody who's paying a $40,000 tax bill,
I
Three
understand that,
quarters of that
okay.
is the school.
it wouldn't go up
But
10,000, it would
No,
go up
I
like
meant the town
4,000 or
tax,
3,000.
That they're paying 40,000 in town.
On town tax, okay, well, that wasn't clear, because I didn't know,
Okay.
I'm not aware of anybody's,
No.
because that means somebody's paying
Maybe,
120,000
I don't
total.
know. I do know that Carnegie amount is a huge amount, but.
Right.
Okay.
All right, I was gonna, I'd like to, I mean, we're starting to get into, I mean,
Can I just add
yeah,
one more
okay.
thing?
And then we're gonna move on to the revenues.
I don't think anyone wants to want that. I think I want to say that. I think it's the balance of determining. It's determining what we need and not, and what it's going to cost and what the appetite is to be able to pay for it, and that's what the public decides in March.
That's why we have moved on.
Well,
Well, we're gonna be back in and going through it and making our recommendations with the in the future and. We'll revisit this, but we don't wanna keep beating the dead horse here, I understand
It
that.
doesn't, it's not cold.
That's right,
I can tell.
you know it.
Yeah.
And we'll be circling-
2 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get it started.
Oh, let's do revenue.
We gotta do revenues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
On the issue of revenues, can I just make a comment quickly? Let's on the revenues. Up until 2022. The delinquent tax revenue was never counted in the budget, and we've shown. It was never counted in the budget nationally.
Mhm.
And it was clear every single delivery session. That was it, as a balance against what we knew was, we need to get that money into the table, it's gonna be done. So nobody before me, nobody during my term, ever counted the delinquent taxes as part of the budget. Whatever sort.
No, and that's fine, we're just, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is, that this past year, and it was included, I understand the year before, it's like, you just don't wanna.
And there is
We don't
about
wanna
a 2%
have that issue.
spread, 2 to 3% spread, where you're not covered, so you can't just take all the old delinquents to pay the new.
Right, no, it's not exact, but it gets you, it keeps you in the right world.
Sorry, that was on. So,
All right, you guys wanna? Anything you wanna go over with this?
I just wanted to briefly touch on the library revenue, from the last presentation. I just wanted to clarify how the library revenue was presented. The library cash is deposited into the library's bank account that's managed by the library trustees. So, it's not an offset to the library expenses. So I just wanted to make that clear when we're looking at budgeting purposes, the library's expenditure lines are not offset by revenue because the library deposits revenue directly into the library account. It doesn't get deposited into the general fund to offset taxes. So when we're looking at the expenses, keep that in mind. It's not a lot. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood because the handout that we've received made it appear different.
And the library account is for what purpose?
The library has its own private account, so the money that they raise is deposited into their bank account that the library treasurer
I
is
get
a
that,
signer
but
on.
do you know what purpose?
For their,
What's that mean?
Pay for the library books.
So the town is not paying the library
Donuts on Friday.
salary.
Yes, they are. I mean, the town is giving them the amount of money they're asking for. I think it was what, 236 or something like that.
Well, it
And-
used to be 185,000 came from roughly between 185 and 200,000. Is a single line in the general fund budget.
Right.
So that was paid to the library, and the library spent the money.
Right.
Right.
And the only reason it was in that way, Carrie Ann, was because the IRA again, the gross budget told us, and it was part of the library association, there was a whole series of workshops on this. Because we used to do just what the subsidy was. That's all we did, okay? And they took it and it never appeared in the town budget and said that it's illegal because it's still a town expenditure. And under gross budget, you have to have the town expenditure approved by the voters. So yes, they're an independent group. It's like the ambulance service. And I suspect that the ambulance service may have the same issue, except that that's an enterprise account, at least it ought to be. And the library is under the general fund. So that means if you have to show every expenditure, you put in the entire library. And then in order to, not all the money that pays for the library comes to the library. It's usually $15,000 to $30,000 that they get from grants and gifts and all the rest. That are reliable, they're there every year. And then those showed up in the general fund income side. So it was a transfer. It may not in yours, but it did when I was doing it. It was under departments, there was a line in there for a library. That said the grants from the library is an offset, it's considered as income. So the way it worked is there was an accounting. The voters approved the 200,000. They approved the general, they don't approve the revenue. There's never a vote for what the revenue budget is. It's shown in the MS2, but it says less revenues, but the long and short of it is that there isn't a budget per se that gets put in other than what the budget committee puts in, and then what goes to the MS2. So what we did was show all the expenses of the library and showed on the income side, the grant money from the library. So there was a bookkeeping entry that went in, putting the money, voters approved the money for the library. Then we transferred the money, usually in a lump sum at the beginning of the year, to the library. Then they transferred back the grants for the year. That's how it works. So that, and I don't care how you do it, you take the consequences if somebody says it's wrong, but I'm just suggesting you might want to go.
Sadie?
Because it's 9 o'clock and you're not feeling well, Chet has to drive over an hour to get home. I'm wondering if we could table revenue until the next meeting. It looks like all we have is CIP. Would anyone be opposed to that?
I second that. I would love that.
Okay.
Well, and it will also give you guys time to look at the revised budget, because I think it will become very clear. It's really close.
If it's gonna be more productive to wait, and
I think
I'll
it'll
go
be more
home.
productive.
I'm happy to go.
Yeah, next one. And our next meeting is on the 7th.
Fifth. Fifth.
Yeah.
After Thanksgiving.
And that's based on the planning board. It's pretty.
All those in favor, actually, did anybody want to discuss? All those in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed?
And I'll vote to adjourn.
Yes.